All right, excellent. Well, welcome everyone to the Integrated Innovation Network's Startup Stories. My name's Siobhan Curran and I'm the manager at the University of Newcastle's Integrated Innovation Network, or I2N. So before we jump into today's event, I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this virtual event on the lands of the Awabakal and Worimi people. And I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you're all joining us from today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this event. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal people and their ongoing connections and cultures to the lands and waters of Australia. You can also show your respect and awareness of country you're joining us from by letting us know in the chat function at the bottom of the screen. And that chat function is also where you can connect and comment with other virtual attendees. So for those of you that are new to the I2N, we're an initiative of the University of Newcastle, and we have a central aim of really trying to be a catalyst for regional transformation through everything from enterprise skill development, new venture creation and entrepreneurship. So at the heart of the I2N is a strategically positioned entrepreneurship centre in Newcastle CBD here at Honeysuckle. We offer co-working facilities here, and they're complemented by a range of different programs, including mentoring, connection events like Startup Stories and Join the Dots, and cohort-based programs that cover everything from individual skill development all the way through to pre-startup creation and acceleration and innovation development for existing SMEs. And we support all industries. We extend beyond the traditional sort of tech-based startups to include social innovation and creative industries. And we're coming to you, well, I'm coming to you at least anyway, from I2N Hub Honeysuckle, our innovation hub, which has just recently been accredited with a 6-star Green Star rating, making it the first building in regional New South Wales to attract that level of rating. So we're really delighted to be able to make that an official announcement, and really aligns beautifully to the university's strategic goals around sustainability. So just last year, at the end of last year, we celebrated 5 years of operation, and with the support of the New South Wales Government's Boosting Business Innovation Program, the I2N has welcomed more than 4,000 innovators and entrepreneurs from a range of different industries and sectors at all stages of their journey and regardless of their affiliation to the university. And we've helped fuel, grow and graduate more than 110 teams. They've raised over $18 million in funding, and they're fostering the creation of dozens of jobs and work integrated learning opportunities for our students. They're acquiring customers, they're winning awards, and they're growing their teams and developing their products and solutions that are really delivering real-world impact right here in the Hunter region. So if you'd like to know more, you can head to our website. It's newcastle.edu.au/I2N. And that's enough about us. So a little outline of the format of this morning's event. We've taken a number of questions from attendees at Rego, and we'll be leading with those after our speaker provides a brief background on their startup journey. And then we'll open up to any questions that have been asked via the Zoom function, which is at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to jump in with any questions in that chat function, and we'll come to them towards the end of the event. So our guest this morning is Shane Darwin. He's the CEO of JBHXR, a startup which integrates VR tech with training. And the hope there is that it will significantly enhance the learner experience. Combining his technical skills and a passion for teaching others, Shane entered the further education field last decade and joined Newcastle-based JB Hunter in 2017. So Shane has led the digital transformation of JB Hunter, including the launch of JBHXR, its virtual reality arm, in mid-2020, and migrating courses to virtual instructor-led delivery. So Shane is really looking forward to growing JBHXR over the coming years, building partnerships both local and global. And that's really at the centre point of their position at the forefront of VR learning industry. So welcome so much, Shane. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us at Startup Stories this morning. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your background.
Fantastic. Thanks, Siobhan. It's a lovely warm welcome, and happy to be here this morning. I'm also joining from Awabakal land, but not in the hub this morning at our office over in Maryville. So thank you everyone for dialing in. Hopefully not too many more of these online startup stories. We can get back to meeting in the flesh again real soon, but we'll see how that goes. As Siobhan said, I am based for a company, a Newcastle-based company, JB Hunter, who have a virtual reality training offshoot called JBHXR. So I just thought I'd outline where the JBHXR comes from and what that means. And so the JBH refers to JB Hunter, which is our parent organisation. The XR referring to extended reality, which is a sort of a catch-all term for any sort of spatial computing type technologies used, the virtual reality, augmented reality, or mixed reality. So that's where the JBHXR comes from. Maybe before I get too deep into how it all works, let me just sum up what we do with a slide. And as you can see there, we actually electrocuted 1,000 workers in 2021. It was actually a little over 1,000 workers. On the plus side, no real workers were actually harmed during that process. And even better for me, I escaped any jail time because all those electrocutions were done in the virtual world. And so I suppose what we do is we take learning experiences that maybe can't be done in the real world or are difficult to do, costly, or all that sort of stuff, and we convert them into a format that allows us to enhance a learner's experience using virtual reality. I will jump in and tell you a little bit more about that in just a second, but first let me indulge myself and give you my story of where I've come from. So I started in the, well, after an initial, you know, they say you have multiple careers throughout your life journey, and I started in the hospitality industry before migrating over to the telecommunications industry back in the 2000s, and was working as a telecommunications technician. I heard the call of the big city. That was in regional South Australia. I heard the call of the big city and moved to an office-based job coordinating a field workforce in 2012 in Melbourne. And you know, it was a really good job. I enjoyed it. I worked quite hard and took a holiday. And when I came back from holiday, my job running the workforce had suddenly changed to you're now in charge of training our technicians. And after a little bit of initial shock, I got into the training role and found that it was a real passion and a real love of mine. So over the last 10 years, I've developed that training role and moved through various positions and organisations from training through to training management and L&D design and whatnot, and now find myself as CEO of JB Hunter, where we have a training organisation and also the virtual reality training arm as well. So that's sort of my journey into the training space. It wasn't by design; it was more by accident, but it's certainly been an enjoyable ride along the way. Early last year, I was living in Melbourne, and a friend sent me a Facebook ad from the city of Newcastle saying there's a program they're running called the New Move program, which was offering grants of $10,000 to get innovators and entrepreneurs to the city of Newcastle. So I submitted an application for that, and was lucky enough to be one of the 30 people selected to move to Newcastle. So I'd just like to give a little shout out to the city of Newcastle and Hannah and Simon and the rest of the team there for their fantastic efforts in getting that program up and running. It's brought myself and 29 other really wonderfully talented people to the city of Newcastle, and alongside the grant was a whole heap of business support, including membership at the I2N hub as well there in Honeysuckle. So it's been a fantastic thing for myself, and meeting a lot of good people, and obviously getting opportunities like today is really quite priceless. So thank you everyone at the City of Newcastle, and also thank you everyone at the hub there as well, Richard and Siobhan, for all your assistance over the journey. That's probably enough about me. Let's have a bit of a look at how JBHXR fits into the world and how we operate in that experiential learning space. Experiential learning, immersive learning, kind of interchangeable words, but I suppose I wanted to sow the seed that experiential learning's been around for a long time. You know, we've obviously had textbooks and classrooms and all that sort of stuff, but we've always been using supplementary means there to try and enhance those learning experience, being role plays, team building events, sort of things that take you out of a textbook and draw you into real life. And immersive technologies, digital technologies such as virtual reality and augmented reality are just an extension of that. So we're able to now leverage those spatial computing systems to do things that we were doing otherwise in a face-to-face environment. So that's really what immersive learning is all about. It's taking an example, something that can't necessarily happen in the real world, and putting it into a virtual world so that you can enhance the learning experience. The world of spatial computing and what I'll call the metaverse, which has certainly received a lot of publicity lately with Facebook's change to Meta, is something that's been around for a while, but it feels like it's really gaining a lot of extra talk in the media at the moment. And that that is a world we live in right here, right now. So, meeting people a la what we're doing now on Zoom, but in a virtual environment is certainly possible now. Delivering live training in real time via a virtual environment is all possible right now. So it's all really exciting technology and an exciting time to be around. Listen, whether or not every one of us is walking around with our Oculus Meta Facebook headset on 24/7, I'm yet to see that happening, and I doubt that it will. We'll talk a little bit about more where the metaverse and whatever is heading as we go along. So for JB Hunter, we're a startup. We're a 30-year-old startup, I like to think. So the JB Hunter business itself has been around for 30 years delivering training. As a virtual reality / extended reality business, so that journey is a lot shorter. And we're about 2.5 years old. So I'm wearing my JBHXR hat today and saying, yes, we are a startup, but we have a DNA that stretches back 30 years. And it gives us, I suppose, some legitimacy in that training space to not only take the technology component, but also integrate that with the training. And that's for us. That's kind of, I suppose, our unique value proposition is that we have the training experience, we have the virtual reality experience, and we like to hold people's hand and get them through the journey of what can be a confusing and quite different technology to what others in the learning and development space may be used to. So we work with corporate, further education and higher education providers to help them with their journey. And it's not about replacing their existing training with virtual reality. It's about enhancing their training or complementing their training, because virtual reality is not the answer to everything, but it can certainly be used in the right way to add extra value in certain environments. So that's what we like to do. We don't like to push VR for the sake of, it's trendy, it's sexy. Why do you want VR? Oh, I just want to be innovative. Well, unless you've actually got a real reason for it. We actually try and pull the reins back a little bit with our clients to say, well, what's your need? And if there's a genuine need there around high risk scenarios or geographically dispersed workforces, the need to scale quickly, all that sort of stuff is where VR really comes into the fore, and that's where we get the greatest buy-in from our clients. Some of the stuff we offer, I've got on the screen just there, and this is just a limited selection of some of the courses we look at, but we generally play in the technical skills space. So that's actually a hard skill, be it delivering CPR training or performing a pole top rescue, that sort of stuff. We play in the soft skills space as well. There's some really brilliant soft skills training out there that we've got in our portfolio that can cover things such as leadership, cultural diversity, all that sort of stuff. And then there's some well-being content as well, such as mindfulness and meditation. So we've partnered with others around the globe and are part of an alliance that now has access to the world's largest portfolio of virtual reality training. And for us, that's really important. It allows our clients to leverage the investment they've made in their infrastructure, the headsets, and having a system in place, and allows us to get more content for them to use, to really, I suppose, get, instead of the headset sitting in a cupboard and being pulled out once a month when needed, it may be being used every day of the week by different people within an organisation for different topics. So, I certainly, always cringe when I hear the old Netflix analogy, but in a way we are running a Netflix type model, that we've aggregated content from around the world. We've got some of our own content, we've got other partner content, and we've put them together to come up with a library that really works for our clients. Alongside the library, we deliver it via a cloud-based platform, which allows us to manage both the device, so we can manage the headsets that are being used, and we can also manage the content and the users as well. So for us being, with our parent company being a registered training organisation, accredited training is tied up with a lot of regulation around who's doing the training and validating who it is. So for us, user management and having unique user logins and all that sort of stuff is vitally important. And so our platform is really strong on capturing that user data alongside both the content and the headset management. We got here over a journey that sort of spanned the last 4 or so years. So we actually looked at getting into the virtual reality world back in 2018 and sat with a virtual reality platform provider and had a good look around. At the time, we were seeing the benefit of virtual reality, but the wireless headsets hadn't really quite hit mainstream rollout yet. So for us, we pulled the handbrake on and said, hey, listen, let's wait until we can have a non-tethered headset. So we couldn't see a model working where we had a training room with multiple computers and cords going everywhere, and it felt like it just wasn't going to work. So in middle of 2019, the Oculus Quest headset came out, which took wireless virtual reality to the masses at a price point that made investment in hardware seem pretty reasonable. So we put together a proof of concept that launched in December 2019, took that to a trade show in the telecommunications industry, which is where we play from a training organisation space, and it was really well received. People seemed to like what they were seeing in that proof of concept. So we bit the bullet down then and said, hey, listen, let's build out a range of safety training for our telecommunications workforce, being the one product that our workers in the industry were doing year in, year out. We could see there being some benefit in that investment. So we jumped in and, spent a considerable amount of money building out some safety content there. And in March 2020, as most of you will know, COVID hit and really sort of changed the world altogether. Our biggest single client is Telstra, and we delivered all their workforce training to their field workforce in the safety space, and that involved all their workers coming into our training venues and doing their safety training. And so having a virtual reality product that was 1 or 2 months from being ready to launch was a bit of a godsend for us, because it allowed us to roll a company that had put a hard freeze on any face-to-face training that still needed to accredit their workforce suddenly had a supplier that could deliver a product using virtual reality. So that was a really big moment for JBH and JBHXR as a brand. So we worked with Telstra to roll out close to 300 headsets right across the country. And that is literally from the Torres Strait Island to the far western points of Western Australia. There are literally headsets in just about every country Telstra depot around the country. So it was a fantastic rollout. It was one of our first, and then we've grown on that and learned from that and rolled it out across other providers since. We hit the 1,000th worker going through the training in May 2021, and we continue to grow. And then last year, we also joined a global alliance where we could access not just our content, but also content from around the world, which has culminated in just recently us signing, having Saudi Aramco pick up our products for use in their workforce. And Saudi Aramco are the 4th biggest company in the world. So having some content from a little Newcastle-based organisation called JBHXR is really quite exciting for us. So we hope it's just the start of a journey across more global use of our product. Where do we go from here? Well, it's it's been an enjoyable journey so far. It's certainly far from being over. We're expecting the virtual reality and mixed reality, augmented reality market to grow quite significantly over the coming years. Certainly, as technology gets easy to integrate, we feel that there's going to be a real uptake in that at a level where we can grow with that along the way. It's also going to be around having learning and development professionals get more in touch with the content as well, and as they get used to using it as a modality, so we see our business growing there. For us, our immediate key targets are really getting the word out and saying, hey, well, listen, we've got a product here. It's really good. It can do a lot to you, and so we've got a really aggressive marketing place at the moment. We've really worked on building the product out over the last 18 months, and we have confidence now that product is the right one to really take to market. So we're doing a big drive the first 6 months of this year. And we'll also continue to look at strategic partnering. So that is working with providers from either locally in Australia or from elsewhere around the world in products that we can enhance our offerings to the clients with. And where possible, we'll look for exclusive territories there to obviously maintain a bit of a market edge and keep us competitive in that space. And got a very exciting product launching, in fact, next week in the EWP space. So using a hardware solution combined with virtual reality to deliver elevated work platform training in virtual reality space. So some really exciting stuff coming up in the near term as well. Along that journey, we've learned a few lessons, and some of the key learnings I thought I'd share with the group today are things such as dividing your UVP early to avoid wasted energy. We thought we knew what we were 18 months ago, and in reality, I think that's changed a little bit. So we've really had to work on where are we and what do we do, and getting a hold of that early, I suppose, avoids wasted time. So certainly nothing wrong with a little bit of a detour along the way, and for us, we have taken a few detours on the way, but we're comfortable now. We have that UVP in place, and it's now the start of us to do a real push. Another thing we've learned through dealing with people, in the startup space is making sure we have the right clients for when we invest our time in selling them a product. We've had a few tire kickers along the journey, and we've come to the realization that we don't need to be dealing with every single inquiry we get in. We certainly respond to them and handle them, but we really try and nut out those that are able to legitimately leverage the value of VR and utilize our services. So those that come to us, without budget or without real need, we tend to be a little bit more selective of them right up front to avoid wasting time, throughout that process for both parties, because it just, it sucks away the energy and momentum of the business. We've seen through rollouts that onboarding is a real key to getting the technology to stick. We've had one we'll call a lesson learning rollout where the end client kind of didn't necessarily run through the rationale for virtual reality with their staff, and it felt like it just didn't get the buy-in that we've had with others, where there's been a lot closer interaction between the client, their workforce, and JBHXR into what we're there for and how we're doing it. So I really can't stress that having the right messaging to the end users, being quite often workers who have no say over how they're being trained, but they just sort of get something lumped on them, having that lump being explained to them and really drawn out for why they're using the virtual reality is super important to getting that buy-in from all stakeholders. And lastly, it's really about networking and getting with people that can help you, and that may be people that play in your industry as semi-competitors in a lot of ways. So we've met some really great people along the journey who operate businesses similar to ours, but maybe not in the same industries or maybe not with exactly the same technologies. And whereas maybe you think we shouldn't be talking to those that are could be classed as competitors, for us there's been some real value there, and we've been able to workshop with each other and bounce clients between each other and technologies between each other, which has been really important for us. And it's also helped us against some of the big players. And for us, we know that the hardware manufacturers have got big budgets and want to sell their hardware, and they're pushing into territories such as platform and content as well. So having a network of like-minded peers that we can band with and draw from is seen as really important for us. And so we'll continue to grow our partnerships and those relationships over the coming months as well. That's probably just about enough of me prattling on. Over to the Q&A.
Thanks so much, Shane. Some really interesting insights there. I've wanted to just jump in with a quick question of my own. How much is your reliance on developing alliances with other like-minded companies that complement what you do has to do with VR, the intellectual property that's developed through VR? I suspect it must be more a first to market and building out the brand reliance as opposed to strictly, intellectual property related. And I'm just curious to know, is the development of those alliances really about building up that market and brand awareness first and foremost, so that, when someone's a company's looking to integrate XR as their training, that they know that JBHXR is the one to go to? Yeah. Or is it actually about the VR experience itself?
Well, I think at the heart of it is the experience. And I think it's having a solid L&D focus to what the content should be about. It's strong instructional design is key to any of it. So I suppose sitting behind that is a whole heap of the how-tos, and that's where it gets a little complicated in that there's different authoring systems for the content, and there's different deployment methods as well. So our platform is designed to work across multiple headsets and works well with some content, but then bringing other content in There's no one global standard, so it's not like the Android and iPhone store. You've got an iOS or an Android. For the world of VR, it's still a little bit more Wild West in that respect. So working with other partners does become a little bit complicated from an IP space, in that we'll be wanting to put our content onto their platforms, and that involves them sharing some of their IP with us for how the back ends work and whatever else, and vice versa. So yeah, there's some pretty tight NDAs and whatever else that go along there, where there's technological stuff. But for the most part, it's about I suppose sharing a combined focus on how the VR can be used to enhance the situation. And the instructional design is the real key, more so than the technology and how it's used to get out there. It's having a really strong design in the background is more important than some of the other stuff.
So how have you gone about developing out that must be a pretty new, unique skill set, translating L&D into an XR environment? How do you go about sourcing talent to help build out those modules so that they work in that, with a headset on in a virtual environment?
Yeah, well, it's really sitting down with someone and sort of with an instruction designer and saying, right, well, where's your storyboard for what you want the learner journey to be? And then it's knowing what can be done in VR. So that's where having someone with the VR experience is vitally necessary, because VR is a fantastic tool. It can't do everything. It will certainly do a lot more as technology changes, and moving away to handset-free systems that are doing hand tracking and stuff will open up a few more doors yet as time goes on. But having the person that knows the VR and the capabilities sit with the instructional designer who's got the storyboard then allows, I suppose, to combine both viewpoints to say, well, what if we did this? How do you think that would work from a design point of view? And the VR person can say, well, from a technological point of view, yes, we can do that, or no, we can't. How about we look at it this way? And so there is a little bit of compromise along the way. And certainly I've got it. So I kind of sit in both camps, coming from a training background and also having the technology focus, is that I go, I'd really love it to be able to do that. And then the designers may say, well, hold up, Shane, we're not quite there yet. So there is a little compromise on what we do, but it's really taking someone with the ID skills and someone with the technical skills, putting them together and then coming up with the best practice product.
We've got a question here from Peter Morrissey at HunterNet, who's asked, where do you see VR going in training areas and practices in the future?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Good question. I think it's really going to be up to the L&D world. The technology is there now to be able to develop and deploy these things, but I think we're still being held up by the L&D people who are maybe either aren't aware of VR or scared of VR, and it's around getting the knowledge to them about how they can use that VR XR space to enhance their learning. I think they're going to be one of the key drivers in how VR progresses moving forward. Alongside that, we've got technology that's also going to change as well. So I mentioned there before, handsets at the moment are generally required for all the VR headsets. You'll have a headset on, you'll have a couple of handpieces. The handpieces are starting to be removed with hand tracking or wearables, gloves and whatever else, that will open up some technology changes there, and that will allow development of different pieces. So it's a combination of getting that done as well. And I think we're also going to expand out with other wearables as well. So maybe not necessarily in the virtual reality space, but I think from an augmented reality point of view, we're going to be like the HoloLens or the Google Glass. I think we're going to be seeing some other technologies come along. It'll be a little bit less intrusive than maybe some of those early products were, maybe even to the stage where we're using things like our AirPods and whatever else may be used for audio-based training as well. And I think that's it's all going to come together over the next year or two. It's going to be quite exciting as well.
Yeah, actually, it's a nice little segue to a question that's just been asked by Owen Hewitt, who says, do you see XR content being delivered on a handheld device like an iPhone?
Yeah, for sure. Probably something I tend to not forget about, but I get so caught up in the world of VR, and I love putting the headset on and drifting away into another zone. But a lot of our content is actually designed to work in the 2D world as well. So it'll work on a tablet or laptop, which is really quite important because not everyone has access to the VR headset, but can still benefit from that 360 environment, even if it is on a 2D device. And that certainly applies in the augmented reality world as well. We're seeing a lot of applications being used there where the 2D screen is giving an overlay of extra data layer on top of the real world.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how the options are really limitless, I guess, in terms of, and I'm curious to know how kind of reliant are you then on the developers of the hardware determining what pathway you choose to deliver out content? Is that something that keeps you up at night, but you think about a lot?
No, we went through a couple of iterations of our product, and early on, our version 1 was designed for a single piece of hardware, which we quickly found had some limitations in that when that hardware got updated or better products came out, we were kind of pigeonholed a little bit. So we went and sort of redesigned the whole product and came back out with, I suppose, a technology agnostic version as best we could, because it is a really exciting developing space where there are new products being launched all the time. So being able to take product and flip it into a new hardware is really quite important to us. And so we've tried to author our stuff to be that as flexible as possible. It's not always perfectly migratable, but usually we've kind of set that background architecture up now to keep it as open as possible.
Yeah, nice. I'm just going to jump into some business questions that were asked by attendees when they registered. The first one's from Glenn Downey at the Motley Group, who's asked, with commercial education and training, it can be particularly tricky matching supply, so the students and the course participants, to demand, which is available jobs at the end of a course, particularly so in emerging tech markets. How have you gone about managing this aspect of your business?
Yeah, no, thank you for that one, Glenn. I suppose for us, our model is a little different in that we're working with providers that I suppose control the supply and the demand. So they already have a workforce or a student base that they have an immediate need for the VR. So they're not developing for the sake of something that may be used. They're developing because they know we should be. They've got a definite need there. So in that respect, we don't have that problem. It is something that we've looked at from a public offering point of view, and as it stands at the moment, even through our training arm, we don't offer a virtual reality public course per se, and I think there's a little bit tricky there in that the development costs around VR are a little bit higher than generally a face-to-face course. Sometimes the actual delivery costs are a little bit lower. So there's a happy balance between getting that demand and supply right. And in the public facing space yet, I don't think we're necessarily there with having a product that we could price that would get the learners in, but it's not far off. And I think that will change in the near future.
We've got another question here from Andrew Olsen at Donnybrook, who's asked, what sort of partners do you engage with and how do you approach them? So you gave us a bit of a snapshot on some of the clients that you've been working with, but is it them coming to you? Is it you chasing your own leads, a combination of the two? And are there any particular sort of sectors or industries that you're focused on?
Yeah, so from a client partner point of view, we started off in the telecommunications space, given that's where our heritage is with JB Hunter. And expand that out through neighbouring industries. So the utilities were our first stop. The telco space works right alongside the electrical providers, the gas providers, the water providers, and so we've made some headway in those grounds. We've then branched out into construction and soft skills. Is where we've really worked hard over the last few months in building a content portfolio that we can then take out to partners. From there, because that white collar space is obviously pretty huge, and it's not an area we've necessarily played in the past. So our efforts are targeted around, I suppose, getting the word out. Some marketing drive, predominantly via LinkedIn, but then also good old fashioned getting on the phone and making the calls, and that's been invaluable. Really. Speaking to the L&D departments and having getting onto the phone to the right people and having a bit of chat with them is really the way to go. It's very much focused on that outbound, get on the blower and make it work.
Yeah, I love the soft skill development stuff. I know that our student services team would probably be really interested to know about the interview one, because we're always trying to train up our students to be job ready, and nothing makes anyone more nervous than doing a job interview. So I actually don't think it matters what age you are. Practicing in job interviews would be amazing.
And you're 100% right there, Siobhan. I've done it a couple of times for myself now, and the technology is really great in that you sit in the job interview and you answer the questions, and then the technology then plays it back for you and gives some AI responses based on your speaking speed and your eye gaze, your body language, all that sort of stuff. And
all the ums and ahs.
Yeah, all the ums and ahs. And as someone who considers themselves to be a fairly mature person who's been down their share of job interviews, I'm learning things and going, well, this must be super valuable for someone who's not been, hasn't had that life experience as well. So yeah, really exciting product, and we'll be in touch with the I'm sure.
Have there been any use cases that you've thought of that you're surprised industry hasn't come to you with, or that hasn't responded? If you've done any sort of lead generation, or vice versa, have you had people from industry coming to you with concepts around XR or like L&D training that you kind of hadn't considered that you were really surprised about?
Yeah, I suppose some of the things that don't go ahead that you kind of think, wow, they're really right for it, can be for a number of reasons. And one that springs to mind is a particular industry that's very heavily unionised, and virtual reality would be prime for some of their training. And the unions have actually said, no, the way we do it is you stand with a person and you do this with a person. And we're like, well, we could do so much more, and we could put all these extra variables in. And the response from the union has been, no, we do it with a person. So you do scratch your head sometimes and go, well, wow, yeah, you maybe not taking on the full effects of the technology. Areas that have come up that you go, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. None are springing to mind, but there's someone out there that's always got a great idea, and there'll be plenty of those out there, I'm sure.
It's always interesting to see. I guess when you're in it, you can sort of see all of the potential applications, and I guess it's seeing that someone coming in, I don't know, I'm thinking like boating or something like that. Wow.
Now you would know, this made me think of one. We've got a partner over in Sweden that we work with who's got a silica dust awareness product where you actually fly into the lung system, which I wouldn't have. And that is still a wow product for me. You go, wow, that's really that's immersive. That's taking you right in through the journey of the dust and stuff. So there are plenty of smart people out there.
That's interesting. We've got another question here from Raymond Wynn, who's at Canberra Daily Deals. He's asked, how can businesses become partners with your company?
Hit us up, jump on our website, give us a call. We're always happy to have a chat and sit down and have a meeting. And like I say, we usually look for those where the need is, and if there's if there's a real solid need around why VR training would work in the organisation, we'll sit there and have a chat and flesh it out from there.
And we've got a question here from Mark Apthorpe at the University of Newcastle, who's asked, what is the timeline to monetize JBHXR?
Thank you, Mark. It's always a good one. As a CEO with an owner who's very, very focused on ensuring we return some money to the business at some stage. Yesterday, I suppose, is always the answer there, but for us, we're lucky enough that we've been able to develop a product that we've used in our training arm. So as a training product, our initial investment in virtual reality has been recouped through the training we have done and continue to do with our telecommunications clients. From the JBHXR startup point of view, we are looking to get ourselves cash flow positive by the end of this year. So we're at the stage now where we're working on really getting more clients signed up. The product itself has a couple of I suppose revenue streams to it in both the content development and then the ongoing subscription to either content or a platform. So getting some clients in has there's an acquisition cost there, but it's recurring revenue as we go on.
Nice. Yvette Elliott from Navitas has asked, what are some tips in building a network of peers in a new town or for you as a returning resident?
Yeah, so I've been here now just a little over 6 months, and it's been wonderful. I had been working sort of fly in, fly out for a few years from Newcastle, but during that time it was really very much rock in on a Monday or Tuesday and go home on a Thursday, Friday. And I didn't have the benefit of that networking. So for myself, now that I'm here, obviously a little bit COVID affected over that journey, but being a member of the ITN Hub's been invaluable. Meeting some great people. Either through the events the hub has run or just around the office floor, so to speak, has been really great. Being a member of one of the 30 new movers has also been a real help in that there's 29 others that are in a very similar situation to me that have just moved to town. So we're managing to build our own little network there, and as some of us are getting avenues through the Greater Newcastle Society, that's bringing the rest of us along for that journey as well. And then also others. So Peter from HunterNet reached out to me a few weeks ago, and sitting down and having a coffee with Peter there, I'm sure we've got some more development that we'll be doing in that space, and meeting with other like-minded businesses as well. So they're just some of the things that have helped me along the way.
I've got a question here from Bonnie McBain, who's asked, Shane, I'm interested in how you manage to scale your ambition. It would be tempting to try to become big and continually more profitable. The risk is that you spread yourself too thin, but do you also question the endless growth approach to building your business? What are your longer term success KPIs for yourself, for instance?
That is a super good question. It is one that we wrestle with a little bit. We're not at the stage there where we're past our growth ability with the people we've got, which is a good problem to have, but it's certainly something we think about for future proofing. Our UVP is really around holding the hand of the client and making sure we're giving the right advice to help them. So if we don't have the personnel that we feel have both the instructional design background and also the ability to implement that with the technology, then I think that would be our limit. We're not there yet, and there are thankfully some really talented people out there that I think as we grow we'll be able to lean on. But yeah, for us, it would be a personnel issue, and if we get to the stage where we don't have the right people, then we would look to cap where we go, because we don't want to be putting out some sort of half-baked offering that is not going to have the right experience when the client gets it.
We've got another question here from Josephus, who's asked, have you found VR motion sickness an issue when rolling out training to a large group of employees across an organisation?
Yeah, so that is certainly something we're very mindful of. We've found from the people that have been, like I said, we've hit over 1,000 learners there earlier last year, and from post and pre-surveying of those people, we're sitting around under 2% were having issues with motion sickness. So in those scenarios, we have looked at what we can do from a face-to-face point of view. I should point out that the headsets now are generally a little better than they were even 3 or 4 years ago, and the incidence of motion sickness is certainly decreasing as the technology gets better and the refresh rates and all that sort of stuff goes with it. And alongside that, I think we're getting better as designers as well in designing the flow of the experience so that there's not rapid movements or whatever else. And I think from a design point of view, we're making content that is better suited to avoiding motion sickness.
It's actually something I hadn't thought about, but I guess it makes sense. You don't really want to be on a roller coaster in VR, maybe.
Yeah, and listen, the other thing we've got to cover off there is psychological safety as well, and what we're doing to ensure that when the person puts on a headset, they're not feeling like they're psychologically in a world where they're maybe not comfortable. So there's a whole heap of considerations, and that's where that, I suppose, that real instructional design focus and drawing back on everything from old school training and utilising that in the VR world is really important.
It's a great point. Benjamin Tonnetz asked a question here, a fellow new mover. Does VR induction and training more efficient to learn rather than face-to-face? And how do you measure the efficiency of the knowledge acquired compared to normal training?
Yes and no. Will it be better in every circumstance? It's really hard to give a blanket answer there, Ben. It's going to be a combination of. So depending on the environment, we would suggest either a yay or a nay. So for us, it's sitting with a client and saying, right, well, how many people do you train? What sort of environment are they in? And when you do these inductions, do you have to do any site shutdowns, or are there other logistical concerns? Because quite often on a high risk site, the use case of virtual reality really jumps up and says, yes, this is the way to go, because you don't have to worry about those site safety concerns or doing shutdowns or even tying up an experienced worker while the new person goes through and does the thing. So that in many cases, it will come down to a yes, VR is better. But in other cases, we'll actually advise against a virtual reality induction if we don't think that it really adds the benefit or gives the client what they're going to be after. And I think there was a second part of that question. I've forgotten what it was there. What was the
Oh, sorry, it's disappeared from my screen. But I do have another question for you. It's from Seamus Smith from the University of Newcastle. In terms of content dev, are you using an in-house platform or utilising game tech like Unity or Unreal?
Yes, game tech. So both Unity and Unreal, depending on who we work with. Most of our content is written in Unreal, but we do dabble in some Unity stuff as well. And then just having the right coding there to hook it into our launch platform, and away we go.
And I think that's it for questions. I've got one more. So if anyone else wants to jump in with another question, please feel free in the Q&A. Oh, I've got one. Oh, no. Yeah, so if anyone's got another question, please jump in. But one question I do want to ask you, Shane, is what can organisations like universities do to help companies like yours grow, whether that's through training our students in particular skills or otherwise?
Yeah, so I suppose probably a few things that university sector could assist us with. I suppose as Seamus pointed out there, coding is important for the content dev type side of things. So having a workforce that comes out comfortable working with Unity and Unreal is fantastic. And having maybe a focus on training development as opposed to gaming development would certainly be of assistance to us there. Being able to access developers that kind of know their way around a training product as opposed to a game is usually a pretty niche little product there. So we're lucky enough to have found some of those developers over the journey, but majority of development houses are really focused on gaming as opposed to learning. Using the technology in delivery, like I said, I think one of the limitations on VR's rollout is really, the L&D professionals aren't aware of what VR can do and how it can be used to enhance the learning experience. And having universities putting headsets on their students, and actually using it, where the use case would fit, just helps with that uptake, because the universities are breeding the leaders of tomorrow, and if they're out there having seen it and done it, that certainly helps its uptake in industry as well.
Yeah, I know we've had some really great applications of VR in our midwifery courses. So assessing just after a baby's been born, doing a simulation to check all the vitals of the baby, of the virtual baby, as an example. And there's been a couple of other programs I know that have been run, or sort of VR applications that have been run with particular courses, but more so around midwifery. I understand there may be more, but I'm not aware of them. So it's always good to see industries making applications or applying the technology where they can.
For sure.
Yeah, well, we have no more questions left for you, Shane. I think that probably speaks to your presentation. You were able to cover off some really great information there. Again, really appreciate your time today in sharing your story. I was just going to quickly just run over some messages that we've got around the I2N before we close off for today. So the first one is we have another Startup Stories coming up on the 2nd of March. So we usually run our startup stories on the first Wednesday of every month. This month was a little bit different. We went with the second Wednesday, but Wednesday, 2nd of March, 8 a.m, we're going to be running it again through Zoom. Startup stories with Lisa Wynn, who is a founder that participated within our Female Founders program in partnership with the City of Newcastle last year. And she's developed a fantastic new product, and her business is iHydrate. So Richard's going to throw up the registration link in the chat if you'd like to check that one out. And like Shane mentioned, our incubator is back. So co-working is happening in person, albeit we do need to wear masks in the office. But if you're in a meeting room like I am, you don't have to. But if you want to co-work with a diverse community of startup founders, you can do that through us at our hubs here at Honeysuckle. And we also have a hub up at Williamtown as well. And of course, if you're a startup founder, whether you're pre-revenue, pre-product even, all the way through to scale up, and you're looking to get some support from a team of mentors, you can put in you can submit an expression of interest to our Venture Mentor Service program. We have over 35 mentors that are on hand to help you through your startup journey. And again, if you're at the very early stages, you've got an idea, but you're not sure what to do next, our online course, Entrepreneurship 101, is a really great way to get a handle on all of the acronyms like UVP and MVP and things of that nature. So if you wanted to find out more, head to our website, newcastle.edu.au/E101. That's it from us for this month. Again, thank you so much, Shane, for your time. We really enjoyed having you in the hub, and we're looking forward to having a little celebration with all the new movers later on this week. And again, thanks for your time. Have a fantastic week.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.